mean, one thing is it's okay to not know what you're doing next, because I know everyone starts to get really panicked about, about your next steps. But ultimately, like, it is okay to take some time. I know people sometimes don't like to do that. It's okay not to take some time. Like, the way I did it by going to work for a little while and then coming back to do my master's is sometimes a nice way to do it. It allows you to really know what you're interested in. Sometimes, going straight from undergrad, you might not know, but
I think one thing to never forget is that curiosity. What brought you into anthropology? What caused you to be interested in this discipline that not a lot of people study, and maybe not a lot of people know about, but is extremely valuable to the world as a whole, because anthropologists end up in so many different places. They end up teaching, they end up in tech, they end up in different parts of the world. So I would always remember why you chose anthropology, or why anthropology chose you. I often think anthropology chose me. I didn't even know what I was doing and picking in terms of that course, but here I am. So I think especially when things become uncertain and become challenging, remember why you have chosen to remain in anthropology in fourth year, and why you're there, and think about the skills that you think you have developed and honed over those 3, 4, or 5 years. So those are communication skills. Those are skills that are related to understanding methodologies, research methodologies, conducting research, but also sifting through research and deciphering what's important in that research based on whatever you're looking for and answers you're looking to uncover.
So I think by the time you get to fourth year, people can be really burnt out and people can be tired, and there's that apprehension and that kind of nervousness about what's going to happen next and what do I do after this. I would say just keep doing all the readings. One thing that I regret is not doing some of the readings, or not always being on top of the readings, because you won't do it again. Like, it's not it's like it's done. I kept all my books until I think maybe even just last year I started purging. Like, it took me that long to start kind of purging some things, and you're like, I'll read that. I know how important that is, but just really be in the moment and really enjoy it, because life goes on and life gets busy, and it's a really special time right now. Like, it's a hard time, but it's a really special time that once it's done, it's kind of wherever a person finds themselves, it's not the same as being in this position of being in school. And so that would be my first thing, is as hard as it is, just really like enjoy the readings, just enjoy that time.
First of all, I can't imagine how challenging it is in this context to kind of be thinking about your next steps in your future. So, I mean, don't be too hard on yourselves. And I think keep an open mind. Don't feel that you have to rush to figure out everything right away. For me, the current job I'm in now, it took me 4 or 5 years to kind of get to this point where I kind of found a career path that was really interesting to me. I think if there's elements of what you've been studying or something you see kind of in the world that interests you, kind of follow it and see who else is working in that field. Don't be afraid to reach out. I mean, even I personally have been kind of developing different interests lately in terms of even digital anthropology. I was considering maybe going back to do more on that field, because there's so many interesting things happening now in terms of disinformation, how people interact with technology, online communities. There's so many things bubbling up where I think there's a really strong need for an anthropological perspective. So I think if you have an interest, pursue it. Don't feel like you have to figure it out right away. But don't be afraid to reach out to people that are working in the field that are interesting to you. I'm sure you'll get a lot of help. And I hope that all your next steps kind of line up. But if they don't line up right away, don't be too stressed about it. It'll come.
Get your references in order for grad school if you're interested in that. That's another conversation to have with some professors that you connect with and are doing well in their courses, because to have those connections, even if you take a few years. I contacted my professors for references for grad school 3 years post my undergrad graduation, and I was terrified. But the thing was, they were so helpful about it and great, and that is the hallmark of our Western graduate community and the professors there, because because yeah.
Just take it one day at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself with the big picture. I always think about 5 years in advance, but to get there, I just take it one week and one day at a time. Because when you really start thinking about all the skills and all the responsibilities you're going to have to worry about throughout that whole time period, it does get really overwhelming. So just taking it in smaller bites.
Is if you are still trying to decide what you'd like to do with your anthropology degree, it's okay if you don't know. I didn't think when I was in my final years that I'd be where I am now. I actually thought that I'd be doing more school or somewhere else in the world, maybe not specifically leaning into my ethnography background, but I am every day, and it's really amazing. So I would encourage you to also not stress if you don't know exactly what you want to do with your degree. It's totally okay to be a little uncertain, especially now, but know that what you're doing and what you're studying is needed in the world. I think about this every day. Think about the fact that the world needs anthropologists, and they need anthropologists in the most unheard of places. So I would never have thought that I would be in tech, but here I am. So
I think that my fourth year experience, like academically, was really sound. Like coming out of Western, fourth year was probably my favorite year. I took like the hands-on courses. Like I went to Madagascar. I took whatever the archaeology one is at the museum where you get to do your own digging, which was awesome. We found nothing. But I felt like the department gave me some really practical experiences, but what I wish that I'd done for the job market is actually go out and get volunteer hours or something in something I'd be interested in. So like I was thinking about doing social work. So if I had done some volunteer hours doing something like that, or some volunteer hours in the classroom, I think that would have strengthened applications to different programs, and I would have had a better idea actually what I wanted to do in a job market if I had come out not wanting to continue with anthropology, which is at the time what I wanted to do, but I ended up doing. But I think the thing that I would have changed about my fourth year has been more involved in kind of the practical aspect of what does this look like on the ground if I'm applying for a job. Which I think
be open to like departures from your predetermined path. Like I was very set on being like, I will take 1 year off, start a master's right after, and then right after that do a PhD, and then I will go do a postdoc here, and it'll all be good. My life has very much not been that way. But even though I plan on returning probably to that path at some point, I think the lessons that I've learned along the way have made me really engage more with the real world and like kind of bring that perspective if I do go back to academia, and that your other experiences that might be a departure from where you thought you would be, even if you end up on that previous path, will help you on that path, I guess, and broaden your perspective.
Yeah, my advice would be to enjoy the rest of your program. Try to pick research topics or other areas of interest that challenge you, challenge both you and your assumptions about the world. I would also say it's never too early to start looking at post-graduation plans. There are so many fields that you can enter with an anthropology degree. And one final word I think is to put yourself out there and seek opportunities to study or work abroad, or just different experiences in your own community that you maybe never sought out before. So experiences like that are so valuable, and your anthropology degree will give you a solid foundation to just kind of make that step out into the world and become more active citizens.
This sounds bad, but I hadn't done a lot of volunteering in the Anthro community and kind of buffed up my resume in that way. And I kind of scrambled in fourth year to do those things, which were great experiences, and I wish I had started them earlier in my undergrad. But the thing is, you can do them this year. It is not too late. Don't feel like it's too late to go to some professors, ask if you can volunteer in their labs or help with field work or help them with whatever they need to kind of, be a volunteer and have that on your resume. And it leads to some amazing things. I got to be a co-author on a published paper because of a connection I made at a lab with a PhD student. And it's just those sort of opportunities. They're just making connections in your in your anthropology community and in the university community can be invaluable going into your career. Some connections I made with other individuals in the labs I volunteered at, like, are now lifelong friends, people who have given me other opportunities outside in the London community, in work. So just, yeah, don't shy away from making those connections. Talk to your professors. I know it's intimidating sometimes.
When I was in school, I would always get really nervous about reaching out to people, and just asking them questions about their journey, about how they got to where they got to, about their job, about their program, school, because I was very interested in certain master's programs in different parts of the world. And that that feeling of I guess being nervous doesn't go away, but I just took the plunge and would send out cold emails or would send out LinkedIn messages, just asking people just asking people if they would be interested in a discussion about themselves. So I very much encourage people, fourth year, fifth year students in their final year of school, to do that, especially if someone is doing what you want to do or are very interested in. People are quite generous with their time most of the time, and would be willing to share a little bit about how they got to where they got to, what their journey was, how do they craft a narrative about the skill sets they've learned, especially if they studied anthropology. I know I did the same. I reached out to people who studied anthropology who are all over the world now, and I think hearing how they've been able to discuss their and share their background in anthro to programs, to prospective employers, really inspired me and allowed me to reflect a little bit more about my experiences. So
think about what you might want to do and allow yourself flexibility to try to think outside the box. I followed a path that was very much dealing with people and working with people, and I like that. But at the same time, I'm not even sure if social work is going to be it for me. And I feel like I've kind of zigzagged a little bit, or not even as much as I wanted to. And I've kind of followed this one path that I'm still not quite sure about if that's what I want. And I think that's okay too. You're allowed to change your mind. But if you are thinking of a career, especially outside of academia, if a person's thinking of that, look at opportunities for volunteering to try to get that experience to complement your degree. If you can at all, if there's time in a schedule to even just do volunteering once every couple of weeks, or just finding something to see if you like it, because that's going to help influence your decisions after you're done school, and it might help you get opportunities as well. So I would just say also, focus on talking to people, doing information interviews, like 20-minute interviews with somebody in a profession, and not being shy to ask people questions about themselves. People love talking about themselves. So, I mean, that's usually, easy enough if you find somebody that is in a profession that's of interest, go for it and just ask a lot of questions.
My advice would be to, when I tell it to people now who are in school or in their MBA, is, try to view it as you're not completing a degree, you're gaining skills. Because if you're going to get hired, you're going to get hired because of skills, more likely than because you have a degree, because a lot of people have degrees. So I think you kind of need to be, especially in fourth year, start really honing in on what are the skills that you are gaining, and maybe start being mindful of them, start building them with, and really start utilizing them, so that when you start your next step applying, you have those skills and experiences ready to go. Because when you're applying into the job market, when you're in an interview, they're only going to talk about what are your skills, and they're going to want evidence and experience to go with it. So yeah.
The one way that helped me get through fourth year was allocating one day for each course for homework, like 2 days before the coursework's actually due. And then if I need to mull it over, I have the whole day before the class to get it thought through.
Yeah.
and reading, learn how to skim read.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reading in fourth year.
Yeah.
I look at the pile of my fourth year stuff and then my MA, and it's similar.
Yeah, I would take the time to take those like courses that sound really interesting that you might be a little bit intimidated by because they're like crossover graduate courses. Like I believe there was a paleo diet course that I wanted to take and I didn't end up taking, and I kind of regret that. I would take the time to take those classes and really enjoy your like ability to learn in that environment, because you'll miss it when it's gone. Yeah. And it's really great to grow. So
if you're ever wary about what skills am I actually learning, go to those learning objectives that have been written out by your prof and teaching assistants, because those are a great place to start with. Okay, this is what skill sets I should be learning and honing.
Do well in your courses, because it's an important year, but at the same time, like, have fun and don't stress. Because I was really stressed my fourth year, but honestly, like, it's one of the most fun years, because you really do get to do what you want to. You're usually through some of your mandatory courses, you're getting to pick what you're interested in. So like, have a good time, and when you graduate, it's great. And yeah, don't worry about what you're doing next. Life usually figure out life as you go, and you know, just grab onto those opportunities and those connections with people, for sure.
That, and like, take courses that are interesting to you, is like not the courses that you think will necessarily like get you a job right away, but what actually interests you, because otherwise if you get a job and then you're bored with it, you won't be good at it. I guess is kind of how I've kind of come to learn on it.
Yeah.
If you're not interested, you can only be so good at it.
Yeah.
Know that where you've come in your journey is extremely valuable, and you have done a great job by, I'm a little biased, by picking anthropology, but it'll be okay. There are people who are very willing, and I'll maybe chat about this a little later, to talk to you about their trajectory and their journey, and we'll continue to be open to grabbing coffee chats with people who have questions about how anthropology is used in their day-to-day life.
I think more than ever in this day and age, the path towards a career is just really, it's not as straightforward as it used to be, and many of us will have a few different careers, and that's mixed. That can be met with mixed reviews from maybe family members or friends or whoever. But I think I would just say, just try to keep listening to yourself and explore opportunities, and knowing that change is okay and you're allowed to change your mind about something. It's never too late.